Welcome, dear pilgrims. Welcome, seekers of eternal knowledge, of the secrets of the dividend discount models. Here in the Temple of Valuation, you will learn, you will be initiated in the techniques that will help you become long-term, prudent, successful investors. Yeah, I know it. Some of it's going to seem like Sanskrit, and some of it's going to seem like things that don't make any sense to you, but that's okay, because after you do them a few times, you'll realize that these things are actually very easy to do the calculations. All you need is a 99-cent calculator. The concepts are a little tricky. In fact, the concepts tend to be the toughest part. The words get in the way, as used from a very famous love song from many years ago. Let's start on slide number 6. Are you ready? Are you ready to be initiated? One popular group of models of fundamental analysis is the dividend discount model. One popular group is, or one popular group are. It's vague. I've looked it up. Some people use is, some people use are. Anyway, the dividend discount models. The shares of stock are valued on the basis of the present value of the future dividend streams the stock is projected to produce. If you recall, in our previous presentation, we said the value of a stock is based on the present value of its future cash flows. Therefore, dividend discount models should be extremely popular, right? Well, during the late 1990s, investors who adhered to these types of models were considered old-fashioned and outdated fuddy-duddies. And some are still considered to be outdated. But those investors weathered the 2000 to 2002 downturn very well. Dividend payers did well in 2022, too. They did better than stocks. They did a whole lot better than the growth stocks. In 2008, well, everybody went down. As we've said, dividends don't lie. Slide number 7, the discount rate. Oh, what a silly name. Oh, here's one of the words that gets in the way. The discount rate is the required rate of return that we choose to calculate the value of shares of the stock using the dividend discount models. Now, we're going to use the term often required rate of return, or expected rate of return, requested rate of return, expected rate of return, desired rate of return, required rate of return. All those things mean the same thing, and they mean the same thing as the discount rate. It has nothing to do with going to the store and getting a discount. Our results will vary wildly depending upon our choice of the required rate of return. You see, the fact that everyone has a different required rate of return means that different investors will expect and demand different stock prices. One might be happy with 6%, another might expect 10%, and a third wants 15%. And this is a quote that's attributed to Mark Twain. It is the difference of opinion that makes horse races. And, it doesn't actually translate into thought process as well. I mean, what does it mean? In other words, it's trying to tell you that everyone's looking at the horses on the field, the stocks in the universe of stocks, and expecting different things and seeing different things. And that's why we have this huge difference of opinion depending on what stocks you're looking at. Some people say, hey, that's a great buy. Other people say, I wouldn't touch that with a 10-foot pole. Slide number 8. The first model we'll take a look at is called the zero growth model. Now, this assumes that dividends will continue at a fixed rate indefinitely into the future. It's a very simple calculation. You take the annual dividends and divide them by the required rate of return. Okay, that's simple enough. And that should be the value of the stock. So, for example, if the stock were paying $3 and we expected to get 6% from this stock, we would take $3 divided by 0.06, and that would give us $50 per share. Does the zero growth model look familiar to you? For you math-oriented folks, it's simply another way to view the dividend yield. So on slide number 9, we see that the zero growth model, again, assumes dividends will continue at a fixed rate indefinitely into the future. The formula is the annual dividends divided by the required rate of return gives us the value of the stock. Now, if you look closely at the dividend yield from the previous chapter, you'll see that the dividend yield is equal to the annual dividend divided by the market price. What we did is we just substituted the value of the stock for the market price and the required rate of return for the dividend yield and just swapped their places. And again, if you hate anything that looks like a formula or math, you're probably saying, huh? Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. If you don't understand, all we're saying, it doesn't matter. Just know that this is the formula and do the calculation. It's very simple. Investors who emphasize the zero growth model are valuing the stock almost exclusively for its dividend yield. What is the current income the stock is generating from its dividends? In other words, we're not interested in capital appreciation. We're only interested in what kind of percentage return from the dividends we can get. Now, these are usually people who are living off of their income, right? They're not so excited about having a stock that's really growth oriented because they know, or they've learned the hard way, that those can drop 30-40% just like that. Whereas companies like utilities and railroads and food companies, right, boring companies, don't usually drop that far, although it happens from time to time. So let's take a look at a real world example. This is a company called Consolidated Edison that has been around in one form or another for about 200 years, which I just think is so cool. The symbol is ED. Look it up. It's on the New York Stock Exchange. The current market price as of February 19th was $93.25. So they're currently paying $3.24 per year in annual dividends. The question is, what is our required rate of return? Remember, everybody comes to the horse race with a different expectation. So let's use 8%. If we take $3.24 divided by 0.08, do it on your calculator. Come on, make sure you do it. That's equal to $40, $40.50. So the model is telling us that the stock is overpriced if our required rate of return is 8%. Does that mean we should just not buy it? No, it's just one piece of information that we use when we are doing our research. Let's lower our expected rate of return, our desired rate of return, our required rate of return, the discount rate, to 5%. Then we take the $3.24 divided by 0.05, and that gives us $64.80. Darn, the stock is still too expensive, according to the model, if our required rate of return is 5%. So with a market price of $32.25, the stock is yielding 3.47. Not very much, since it's a utility, and considering that bonds the last year are no longer paying 1 or 2%, now they're paying 4, 5, 6%. So maybe we want to go look somewhere else. Maybe we don't. Maybe we're happy with a utility that is in New York City and environs and ain't going anywhere. Cool? That's the zero growth model. Now, in the face-to-face class, we'd have worksheet number 1, we'd pull it out, and we'd do the first problem, which is, by the way, a utility that has been paying dividends consistently for many years and not growing those dividends, and we would use the zero growth model. And on the second worksheet, there's another utility, and then on the exam, the assignment, there's another utility as the first problem, and on the exam, right. They're in the same order, always. Slide number 11. Now, the very famous Gordon growth model, which some people call the constant perpetual growth model, which I think is a really stupid name. Constant perpetual. Don't they mean the same thing, right? It's kind of like the Department of Redundancy Department. Whatever, we're going to use the term Gordon growth model because it was named after the Professor Gordon in Toronto. It assumes dividends will continue to grow at a specified rate perpetually. Love that word, perpetually, into the future. Now, folks, it's really just the zero growth model. Whoa, I dropped my microphone. Can you still hear me? I hope so, yeah. I dropped my microphone, and this thing's expensive. It's really just the zero growth model. Annual dividends divided by the required rate of return, except we've added a couple of terms to account for the fact that the dividends are growing perpetually. So what do? In the numerator, we take the annual dividends and multiply them times 1 plus the dividend growth rate. So do the numerator first. Then take the required rate of return, but this time subtract the dividend growth rate. And then do the denominator. And then do the division from the numerator and denominator. Sometimes people will not remember to do the numerator first and the denominator second. You could reverse it. You could do the denominator first and the numerator second, but you got to do the division last. Okay. What's the annual growth rate? Well, let's say we find a company whose growth rate on their dividends is 5%. They've been growing their dividends about 5%. Their annual dividend is $1 per share, which means next year it's going to be $1.05 if they continue. They don't have to. Remember, they can stop the dividend if they continue to grow the dividend at 5%. Let's say our required rate of return is 10%. That's, again, the discount rate. That's what we want from the stock. We decide this. Some people say, well, what is the required rate of return? You decide. It's your decision what you want from the stock. So we take the annual dividends $1 times 1.05. That gives us $1.05. And then we divide that by the 10% required rate of return minus the dividend growth rate that we've observed or we expect into the future of 5%. And that's 0.05. And so the stock the price that we believe the stock is worth is $21. Now, it might be selling for more, it might be selling for less, but the model is telling us that we would expect to pay $21. If it were selling for less, hey, this might be a potentially good stock for us to buy. If it were selling for more, well, that doesn't mean it's not a good stock to buy. It just means that maybe we shouldn't expect 10%. That's why they call it the future, right? So let's take a look now at some real life examples. Have you ever heard of Target? You know, the little mom and pop shop? Yeah, come on, fess up. You shop at Target too, right? So we do. Yeah, we do too. Anyway, so Target, symbol TGT, discount retailer, as of 19th of February 2023, was selling for $173.22. They're currently paying $4.32. Now, let's assume that the dividends are growing at about 8% a year. What if our required rate of return is 13%? Well, you take the $4.32 times the 1 plus 8%, 1.08. You got that? Yeah, that's how we got 1.08. 1 plus 8%, 1.081. Okay? And that gives us a little over $4.66, right? $4.6656. And you don't have to make the numbers really precise. As we say, precision is our enemy. And so that's the numerator. If we take our required rate of return of 13%, which we've said is kind of high, but some people have done it. You saw those mutual funds have done it over 50 years. And subtract 8% out of that, we get 5%, 0.05. So you take that $4.6656 and divide it by 0.05, and you get about $93, $93.31. Notice we use this little squiggle, which means approximate. We don't want to believe that these are hard and fast numbers. Not a particularly great choice if we require 13%, is it? No, it's not. But what if we simply lower our discount rate, our required rate of return, to 10%? Then we get $4.32 times 1.08, that same 4.6656, But this time we take 10% minus 0.08% and get 0.02%. And oh my goodness, our model is telling us, hey, if you require a 10% rate of return, then Target should be worth $233. What a deal. Notice how sensitive the dividend discount models are to our choice of the discount rate, the required rate of return. You know, Target might not be the fanciest store in town, but they sure are profitable. No, wait a minute. Does this mean we go out and buy Target? No. We have a lot more research to do. First of all, we can't just look at a company in isolation. We have to look at their competitors. And who are the competitors to Target? Right. Costco, Walmart, Amazon, who else? Not so much maybe the J.C. Penney's of the world, the dollar discounts of the world. You know, there's a lot of competition in the retail space, as they like to say, the retail space, the retail industry. But cool. And did you see the calculation's actually very simple, right? Do it. Make sure I didn't get it wrong because I make lots of mistakes. All you need is a 99-cent calculator. Okay. Slide number 12, AbbVie. What a silly name, but actually a pretty profitable company. They're into pharmaceuticals. They were spun off from another venerable healthcare company called Abbott Labs. The current market price is $151.31 as of 19th of February 2023. And they're currently paying us $5.92 in annual dividends. So let's again assume that the dividends are growing around 8% per year. If our required rate of return is 13%, then that means $5.92 times 1.08 divided by 13% minus 8%. So take $5.92 and multiply it times 1.08. Come on, do it now. Pause the presentation. You should get $6 and almost 40 cents, $6.39.36. And then 13% minus 8% is 0.05, 5%. And it says $127.87. So the model says, we really shouldn't expect a 13% return. It's not too far away from the current price. But what if we simply lowered our required rate of return to 10%? $5.92 times 1.08 gives us that same $6 and almost 40 cents, 6.3936. Now, 10% minus 8% is 0.02, $319.68, almost $320. Wow, AbbVie looks like a screaming good deal. So what's going on here? The model is pointing us to companies like AbbVie. These are companies that are very large, been growing, have their roots deep in the economy. They've been growing their dividends consistently for many years. Right. We still have a lot more work to do. We've got to research their products, their competitors, their customers, their suppliers. Right. But you would do a whole lot worse than AbbVie, in my humble opinion. Not to be construed as a recommendation for a security in your portfolio. Do your due diligence. That's what the lawyers tell us to say. Anyway, slide number 14. Illinois Tool Works? Who or what is Illinois Tool Works? Well, here's a phenomenal opportunity for you to look up a company that's been around for over 100 years and you've never even heard about it, but you're surrounded by their products and you never even knew it. It's a specialty industrial machinery company. The current market price is about $240.34. The currently paying $5.24 in dividends. Assume the dividends are growing around 8% a year. Our required rate of return is 13%. Are you getting used to this? It's not that hard to do. Once you've done it a few times, it's actually, calculation is trivial. $5.24 times 1.08 gives us about $5.66 or so. You don't have to, you can round it. And then we divide that by that same 13% minus 8%, and that's 0.05, and it gives us $113. Not very attractive if we require a 13% rate of return. But would you expect a 13% rate of return from a company that's been around for over 100 years? What if we simply lowered our required rate of return to 10%? We get the same 5.24, $5.24 times 1.08, or almost $5.66, divided by 0.02, and the model is saying that Illinois Tool Works is worth over $280. So maybe we ought to spend more time researching a company we've never heard of that's been around for over 100 years. Cool. I hope this is piquing your interest. It sure piques mine. Slide number 15. What about Caterpillar? What are they? Some of you know who Caterpillar is. They're in the Dow. They make bulldozers and earth-moving equipment. And did you know that they also own Solar Turbines, which is a company that's based here in San Diego? So, the current market price, $247.79, currently paying $4.80 in annual dividends. Do the calculations with 13% rate of return, required rate of return, and we get $4.80 times 1.08, or $5.18. Divided by 0.05, it gives us $103.68. Not very attractive. But if we simply lower our required rate of return, our expected rate of return, our desired rate of return, our discount rate, they all mean the same thing, to 10%, then we wind up with $259. So if we're happy with 10%, and who isn't, I certainly am, Caterpillar appears to be a very good choice. Cool. Our last example is Altria, symbol Mo. Where'd that come from? They used to be called Philip Morris, and they used to own Kraft and Miller Brewing and Post Cereal, and they spun all those off, and then they spun off the international business, Philip Morris International. So this is the company that sells the Marlboros and Virginia Slims in the United States. If you buy Marlboros or Virginia Dims outside the United States, that's Philip Morris International, and they don't do any business inside the United States, but they're based in the United States. Kind of bizarre, huh? Current market price, $48.07. Currently paying $3.76 in annual dividends, and let's again assume the dividends are growing around 8% per year. The same required rate of return of 13%, $3.76 of dividends times 1.08 gives us a little over $4.06. Divided by 0.05, and the model is saying that Altria is worth $81.22 if we expect 13%. What a buy! If you conveniently ignore the fact that tobacco kills 400,000 Americans each year, would you invest in a company whose product, when used as directed, kills its consumers? Well, as a matter of fact, it's been a pretty darn good investment for decades. And I'll never forget an interview. I forgot the guy's name, but he was a very successful mutual fund manager. He was being interviewed by Louis Rukeyser, who is no longer with us. But for 30 years, he was on that incredibly communist, socialist, liberal television network, PBS. And way before the cable news and the internet, he was extolling the virtues of prudent, long-term oriented investing in stocks, businesses. You can't make this stuff up, folks. Right? And he was interviewing this gentleman who was very big on Altria. And he said, now he pressed him. He kind of goes, now, Senor, Mr. I forget his name. I forget the guy. I should go. It's probably on the YouTube somewhere. You're Mormon, aren't you? Oh, yes, sir. Yes, Mr. Lukeyser, I'm Mormon. You don't smoke, do you? You don't drink. He goes, oh, no, we don't smoke. how do you square buying this stock as an investment? And the guy was very matter of fact. He said, look, there are no secrets here. We know that tobacco, this is back in the 90s, folks, 1990s. We know that tobacco is very dangerous, but people consume it. It's very profitable. And so I'm going to do what's best for my shareholders. Okay. Would you buy Altria? Think about it, folks. Who do you think is going to benefit big, win big, when marijuana finally becomes legal at the federal level? Oh, the tobacco companies. I mean, they have the worldwide distribution. They're just waiting. They're just waiting for it to become legal. Now, I know you might say, it's already legal. Yeah, at the state level, but until it becomes legal at the federal level, you can't use banks. And that's why some people say, well, the illegal marijuana sellers are doing better than the legal marijuana sellers in California. Of course they are. They have to operate in the same manner. They don't use banks either, but they don't pay any taxes or regulations, right? So that's why the illegal, the black market's doing better than the legal market. Once banks can be used, because folks, I know we criticize the banks, but try to run a multinational or even a national corporation without a bank. See how easy it is to be dealing in cash, right? So think about it. Would you invest in Altria? Okay, let's continue. Who is that?
Bayano.
Who is that? Who are you?
You know who it is.
It's my conscience.
Come clean.
Come clean about what?
Fess up.
Fess up about what?
Where did you get the assumed dividend growth, huh?
I made them up.
Huh?
I made them up. All these companies are growing their dividends faster than 8%.
That's better.
Oh, don't you just hate it when your conscience comes a-calling? Some of you might have been thinking, well, where did he get the 8% growth? Well, I made it up. Let's take a look at what they were actually growing at on slide 17. The Gordon growth model is very sensitive to the assumed growth rate of dividends. The recent dividend growth rates of Target, AbbVie, Illinois Toolworks, Caterpillar, Altria are all 8% or higher. Altria is 8.3%, Caterpillar 9.3%, Target 10.6%. Illinois Toolworks is 13.9%, and AbbVie has been growing their dividends at more than 15%. But here's the problem. The model doesn't work if the required rate of return is equal to or less than the dividend growth rate. You get weird results. You get division by zero, which is infinity, or you get negative prices. Therefore, we should actually raise our expected rate of returns for all of these companies. All of these companies are actually better buys than what the market is telling us at 10% and Altria at 13%. Note, though, these are large companies with long histories of rising dividends. But they are not alone. Before 2022, it was getting harder and it had been harder to find good prospects using this model. Translation, stocks were very expensive before the 2022 downturn. Some stocks are still very expensive, but many now have come down to the point where, very prudent long-term investors like you and me, are much happier with their prospects going forward. Now, could they go down further? Yeah, we're not sure. We're going through a recession yet. Will we? Won't we? We don't know. And if we do go through a recession, they're probably going to drop another 10, 20 more percent. I don't know. That's why they call it the future. But I do know that if the world doesn't end, we don't have World War III, whatever, the next 5 to 10 years should be pretty good for these stalwarts, for these companies. We'll see. We'll see. So now is when we would stop in the face-to-face class and continue with worksheet number 2 and do a Gordon growth model problem. Cool. So you can do that later, do it now. There's a commentary, there's an answer key. We want you to be awesome, do it enough times so that you're dreaming it in your sleep. Because the calculations are very easy. It's the concepts that get in the way. Slide 18, the constant growth model. This assumes dividends will continue to grow at a specified rate for a specified number of years. Ay, Paquito! That's what my students at San Isidro used to say. Ay, Paquito, es muy difícil. Do we have to know how to do this? No. You see, this model takes the Gordon growth model one step further, just as the Gordon growth model took the zero growth model one step further. Here's the Gordon growth model, but this time we use math nomenclature because we got to, make it hard because it's college. But, I hate when they just take away the words. Why can't they used to use the word dividends? No, they got to use D and G for growth rate and R for required rate of return. This is the dividend growth, the Gordon growth model that we just did in math terms. And then we add this term to account for the growth for a number of years. And we put the question mark there to ask, do we really need to do this, to learn this? And the answer is no. But it's an example of the kind of research and speculation and work that people have done to value stocks. It's one model. And remember, that's where the money is. So there's a whole lot of these things out there. And most of them, in my humble opinion, are way too sophisticated. And this is one of them. Oops, excuse me. One of them. So let's take a look at the next slide, which takes the the one we just looked at and goes even further. Okay. The two-stage growth model. So here was the model we just did. Where'd my mouse go? Where'd my mouse go? My mouse is just here. It is. Here was the one on the previous page. There's the Gordon growth model, and we add the term to the growth model for a certain. The constant growth model. My apologies. We just went to the previous slide, and then we add this puppy right here to create a two-stage dividend growth model, also called the variable growth model, multi-stage growth model. This assumes dividends will continue to grow at a specified rate into the future, presumably the fast growth stage, and then grow at a second, presumably slower growth rate once the company matures. Many decades ago, dear students, Benjamin Graham warned against using overly sophisticated mathematical models to value stocks. My mouth is so sensitive. Oh my goodness, this thing started again. Oh, everything's messing up here. Let's see if we can stop that. Stop that right now. Stop. Okay, my apologies. Everything's messing up. At the very end, my apologies. I might have to redo these last couple of slides. Okay, so this model may look very impressive, especially to those of us who love math. Remember, my undergraduate is mathematics, and I love math, but I know that most people would rather eat barbed wire than look at formulas. But it has some very serious problems. It is very difficult to accurately predict future dividend growth during the initial fast growth stage of a stock. Usually, companies do not pay significant dividends while they are growing quickly, and that's why we use all these little funny symbols to try to warn you that we have nothing to do with this model. But why did we show it to you? Why do we show it to you? Just to show you that there are dozens of them out there, folks. There are dozens of them out there, and you're going to maybe be happy with the ones we learned in this class. Hopefully, you will branch out and take a look at others. We're going to take a look at another model that is very popular called the Stock Selection Guide, and you're going to see that that's more geared toward growth stocks. We're geared more toward dividend stocks. What is going on here? So, next slide. Okay. So, I know this is a little tricky, especially the words, but the calculations I hope you saw are pretty easy. Observations of the dividend discount models. How do you use these versions of the models for companies that aren't paying dividends? Well, the simple answer is you can't. Right? With no dividends, the model says the value is worthless, right? And that's obviously not true. I mean, a lot of companies don't pay dividends and they're worth a lot of money. Berkshire Hathaway doesn't pay dividends and it's worth $470,000 a share. Dividend growth rates are very difficult to estimate. With large, well-established companies, historical growth rates may be useful. And I think they are, especially when we do our own calculations and find other companies that have done the research also. But with fast-growing companies in new industries, it is almost impossible since most fast-growing companies are not paying dividends. The problems of the dividend discount models notwithstanding, repeat after me. The value of a stock is based on the present value, of its future cash flows, Are you excited? I hope so. Go back over, watch the presentation again, do the calculations of worksheet number 1, zero growth model, Gordon growth model, because, oh boy, dear students, have we got a treat for you. In our next presentation, we're going to introduce you to the discounted cash flow model. And you're going to see a model that works with companies that pay dividends and companies that don't pay dividends. And you will be, after this next presentation, official investment gurus who will see a company, or any investment actually, that is throwing off cash and be able to understand that it is worth something based on that future cash flow that we're expecting. Oh, I'm so proud of you. Ooh. See you in our next presentation when we take a look at the discounted cash flow model, my favorite dividend discount model.